This is politically not working in Trump's favor. At what point are they going to realize that maybe things have gone too far?
Some of those people may disapprove because they want there to be more deportations even faster. You know, we've deported 2.6.
I don't think. Well, based on
you don't think so?
on the
I do.
Hold on, Scott. Based on the polling, we have a lot of polling, especially this week. There's been a CNN poll. There's a Quinnipiac poll. It's pretty clear. They disapprove of his handling of deportations. They disapprove of what happened in Minnesota with Renee Good, and they disapprove of Trump's handling of immigration. If they thought that he was doing a great job, they would applaud.
In today's video, Abby Phillip fact-checked Scott Jennings on NewsNight with Abby Phillip as a tense debate explodes over Trump, the Insurrection Act, and the dangers of militarizing domestic law enforcement. As Scott Jennings tries to defend pro-Trump talking points, Abby Phillip steps in with sharp fact checks, legal context, and hard questions about federal power, immigration enforcement, and political accountability. The exchange exposes just how shaky these arguments become under scrutiny. So let's dive in and watch how Abby Phillip shuts down Scott Jennings on NewsNight with Abby Phillip.
Kind of makeup, he believes that the only way to deal with dissent is to crush it.
Right.
That is not only horrible politics, it is un-American, and it is likely to fail. This is, you know, and they've been building up to this idea that they will create the crisis and then they will solve the crisis by cracking down even harder than the forces that they use to create the crisis. They're asking ICE to do outrageous things. They are recruiting them using Nazi, white supremacist, propaganda, hinting to that, and then people see that. People who don't recognize it as Nazi or white supremacist, maybe they just join anyway. But the ones who do recognize it see it as a hint, the same kind of hint as you know, stand back and stand by. And then you put those people in the field. This is not people coming to Washington to protest. These are people being placed in my neighborhood, doing horrible things to my neighbors. And when people respond to that, they say, now the problem we created, we will solve with more force. This is a horrible political.
How dare you sit here and accuse ICE agents of being Nazi, Gestapo, and white supremacists when they are enforcing
Is that what I said?
You just insinuated that they're apparently recruiting others. You said they're recruiting others, and then it's a dog whistle for others to then apply to that.
Absolutely.
Second of all,
let me tell you what he's referring to.
You didn't see that?
He's referring to posts that have been put out on social media by DHS.
I've seen all the posts.
And on the Department of Labor and on other accounts that have been traced back to white supremacist chat rooms, iconography.
That's the equivalent of Hitler drank water. So if you drink water, you're Hitler.
Did you not see the one?
Well, look.
Did you not see the one with George Washington?
There's plenty of stuff.
Did you see the one with George Washington?
Which specific one?
The one where they were using Nazi. It's hinting at Nazi phrasing over a picture of George Washington. Did you see it?
Did you see it?
You didn't see it.
Well, what was the Nazi phrasing?
You said you see it, but you didn't see it.
What is the phrase?
What is the phrase?
And you didn't see it. And the reason...
Wait, can I continue my answer?
You can't say the phrase.
I don't want to... Guys, hold on.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Everybody stop talking. Just a second. I don't want to go down this cul-de-sac. All I was saying, just in response to your question, is that he wasn't saying ICE agents are Nazis or whatever it is. People have linked back to very specific places where white supremacist ideology is utilized. You can disagree with that, but that is what he's talking about.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to
Now
say.
to the crisis on hand. Democrats created...
Crisis on making.
Just can you let it
Really?
finish?
Because I think it was Joe
Brianna.
Biden who opened the border for 4 years and let in not only illegal aliens, but otherwise inadmissible aliens. And what did you think was going to happen when you let in millions of illegal aliens? It means that ICE must then carry out mass deportations because guess what? There are laws in the books. Now the question then becomes, do you care about enforcing laws on the books, or do you think it's okay to just ignore certain laws?
Of course we want to enforce laws on the books.
So that's what ICE is doing.
Obama enforced the immigration laws. He deported millions of people. He wasn't shooting people in the street. He wasn't breaking car windows. His poll numbers didn't collapse over it because he was being overly aggressive and un-American.
It's hard not to notice how Charles Blow and Abby Phillip are pointing at a deeper pattern that goes beyond one argument or one administration. History shows that governments that rely on escalation rather than restraint almost always create the very instability they claim to be fixing. Political scientists have long documented how heavy-handed enforcement, especially when paired with inflammatory rhetoric, tends to radicalize communities instead of restoring order. What often gets lost in right-leaning defenses is that immigration enforcement has looked very different under past presidents without producing this level of backlash. Under Barack Obama, deportations were high, but they were paired with clear priorities, judicial processes, and less performative messaging. That distinction matters because public trust erodes when enforcement feels theatrical or punitive rather than lawful and measured. There's also a real concern about symbolism and messaging. Extremist movements historically thrive on subtle cues, iconography, and insider language, not always explicit statements. Research from organizations tracking domestic extremism shows recruitment often relies on ambiguity, giving plausible deniability while still signaling to those in the know. Ignoring that reality doesn't make it disappear. The Insurrection Act and military involvement raise another red flag. The United States has traditionally separated civilian law enforcement from military power for a reason. Every major use of troops domestically, from the civil rights era to the LA riots, came with long-term political consequences. Expanding that power during routine enforcement disputes risks normalizing something future leaders could abuse. What Charles Blow and Abby Phillip are ultimately defending is a basic democratic principle. Dissent is not a threat to crush, and force is not a substitute for legitimacy. When policy becomes fear-driven politics,
where are all the Tea Party people who had, the don't tread on me signs? Where are they today? This is America, and this is an un-American activity.
Okay, what this law will do, just so everyone understands, if invoked, it will allow the president to deploy the military. We're beyond National Guard here, so Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, into the streets to serve a policing function. Now, historically, we've tried to separate those two, right, for good reason. Posse comitatus is the Latin phrase, but it just means troops don't do policing. And so the question really is it necessary? Will it help? Is it necessary to send in the military? Will that help ICE do its job better? And look, I grew up with, not grew up, but, in my job professionally, knowing dozens of ICE agents, and they've all been very good, very solid people who want to do the right thing. I made major cases with ICE. I mean, ICE doesn't just do deportation. They make criminal cases as well. So in my experience with ICE, they're not Nazis. They're not racist. But do we need to bring in uniformed Army, Navy, Marines to get on the streets with them? I promise you, ICE would tell you, would say,
I want to make sure we get this phrase in, because the phrase is one homeland, one people, one heritage, remember who we are as American, over a picture of George Washington. And that is a hint at what a lot of people are suggesting is a hint at a Nazi German party thing that said one people, one realm, one leader. Do you remember what the largest Nazi rally ever held in America, where it was held?
Have you ever seen a dollar bill that says one nation under God? Have you ever read John Jay, who said we were one people with one language?
In Madison Square Garden in 1934. And you know what picture was on that stage? George Washington. And you know what the person said when they got on the stage to introduce that Nazi rally? Was that if George Washington was alive today, he and Adolf Hitler would be friends.
And a normal president.
Let me just make one more note. You were talking, Chris was talking about...
Well, when you call people white supremacists.
It's clear why Eli Honig and Charles Blow keep coming back to institutional guardrails rather than vibes or slogans. The United States deliberately built a wall between military power and civilian policing after watching other democracies collapse into authoritarianism. The Posse Comitatus Act exists because soldiers are trained to neutralize threats, not protect civil liberties or de-escalate protests. History backs this up. Studies of domestic troop deployments show they rarely reduce violence long-term and often escalate confrontations, especially in immigrant or marginalized communities. Even former Pentagon officials have warned that normalizing military policing blurs accountability and weakens civilian control. There's also the public opinion reality Brian Lyman can't wave away. Recent AP and Pew polling shows immigration enforcement support drops sharply when voters perceive cruelty, chaos, or political theater. That decline isn't about rejecting law enforcement, it's about rejecting spectacle over strategy. Symbolism matters too. Extremism researchers have documented how historical imagery and coded language are used to normalize radical ideas without explicit statements. Pointing that out isn't calling every agent a Nazi, it's acknowledging how propaganda works in the real world. Ellie Honig and Charles Blow are defending effectiveness, not ideology. ICE functions best when it's professional, lawful, and insulated from political theatrics. Turning immigration into a militarized spectacle doesn't restore order. It erodes trust, inflames resistance, and leaves everyone less safe in the long run for democracy itself. And that erosion is exactly what past democracies ignored until norms collapsed. America's strength has always been restraint, institutions, and accountability. Abandoning those principles for short-term optics risks consequences that last far longer than any news cycle or campaign slogan ever could justify today alone now.
Keep quiet.
Thank you,
Scott, you talk a lot about these so-called 80-20 issues. So Trump seems to be on the way to turning immigration into at least a 70-30 issue, not in his favor. The latest AP poll says just 38% of Americans approve of immigration. That's way down from where he started. This is politically not working in Trump's favor. At what point are they going to realize that maybe things have gone too far?
Some of those people may disapprove because they want there to be more deportations even faster. You know, we've deported 2.6.
I don't think. Well, based on
You don't think
based
so?
on the
I
poll,
do.
hold on, Scott. Based on the polling, we have a lot of polling, especially this week. There's been a CNN poll. There's a Quinnipiac poll. It's pretty clear they disapprove of his handling of deportations. They disapprove of what happened in Minnesota with Renee Good, and they disapprove of Trump's handling of immigration. If they thought he was doing a great job, they would applaud what has been happening so far, and they aren't.
I mean, look, we can debate the polling. Donald Trump flatly told the American people he was going to deport illegal aliens. He was going to mass deport illegal aliens, and that's exactly what they've done. They've deported.
He said he was going to deport the worst of the worst.
Yes.
And they are.
No, they're not.
And so
73% of them have no record
false.
whatsoever.
That's actually
That is not false.
look,
and only 3% have
Why don't I let finish? I can ask questions and you just talk and you talk. and everybody
so
else
you've
talks.
never talked over
So-
anybody.
Hold on,
Thank
hold
you,
on.
sir.
Okay, so Charles, finish your thoughts, Scott.
Here's the deal. He ran on it, and he's doing it. And he's going to be the president for the next 3 years, and they're going to continue to do it. They've deported 2.6 million people. About 2 million have actually self-deported. Only 600 and something thousand have actually been deported through ICE or Border Patrol or other law enforcement operations. So the vast majority of people who are leaving the country are doing so through self-deportation. To me, the greatest question here is, why does it and why is it that Democrats in the state of Minnesota believe that they should be immune from or not applicable to federal immigration law that has been on the books for years? We haven't passed any new laws.
And again,
we haven't passed
That's not the
That
question.
it is a
That's not the question.
It's a
It is.
That's not
misleading
the question.
statement
It's
about
not.
how Democrats believe
At all.
Listen to their own
stationary
statement.
That's not the
law.
question at all.
No, it's misleading.
People are responding to the
Completely misleading.
cruelty.
It's
Well, look,
when you
people are
ask
responding to the
for
when
cruelty.
we
status,
come,
not
when
if
we
you.
when we come back, we'll talk about what Democrats and people in Minneapolis are mad about, because there's some very specific examples that I want us to dig into. So let's push pause.
Abby Phillip and Charles Blow are clearly grounding their position in data and institutional reality, not partisan instinct. When immigration enforcement becomes more about optics than outcomes, public support predictably collapses. Multiple polls beyond CNN and Quinnipiac show voters consistently favor targeted enforcement focused on serious crimes, not broad sweeps that disrupt families and workplaces. That distinction matters politically and practically. There's also a numbers problem that keeps getting ignored. DHS data shows that a large share of recent removals involve people with no violent criminal record, many of whom were already integrated into local economies. Economists have repeatedly warned that mass deportation strategies increase labor shortages, raise consumer prices, and hurt small businesses, especially in agriculture, construction, and caregiving sectors. Those costs land squarely on working families. The idea that disapproval means people want even more deportations doesn't line up with voter behavior. When enforcement is perceived as chaotic or punitive, trust in government drops across party lines. That's exactly what happened after family separation policies, which remained deeply unpopular years later. There's also the federalism issue. Courts have long recognized that immigration enforcement relies on cooperation, not coercion, between federal and local authorities. When that balance breaks down, compliance weakens rather than improves. Even Republican-led states have quietly resisted mandates that strain local resources. Abby Phillip and Charles Blow are pointing to a familiar pattern. Policies driven by grievance politics tend to overpromise and underdeliver. Tough rhetoric may energize a base, but governance requires precision, legality, and restraint. Ignoring those principles doesn't just backfire politically, it undermines the rule of law itself. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing, and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.